Hello, and welcome to Time of Death. I'm Ris.
And I'm Dee.
And if you're new here, welcome. We are two nurses that like talking true crime. We like focusing on cases that have a heavy medical influence to them, or cases that feature a medical professional as the perpetrator or victim. And this week, we have a case that is applicable to both of those things. We're going to be talking about the case of Joshua Hunsucker, who allegedly killed his wife, Stacy. So Joshua Hunsucker worked in EMS. He was a paramedic, and he was charged with the first-degree murder of his wife, Stacy, back in 2019. He had allegedly murdered her 1 year prior using over-the-counter eye drops, which contain tetrahydrozoline. This actually isn't the first case where a spouse had resorted to murder using eye drops. We also covered a similar case where Lana Clayton allegedly did the same to her husband. This is an ongoing case. What we are talking about today is all alleged, and these are our thoughts and opinions based on our own research. So Joshua Hunsucker was a paramedic in Mount Holly, North Carolina. He had been working as a flight medic at Atrium Health's Med Center Air Unit since 2013, and this was where he was working at the time of the murder. Joshua's position as a medic granted him special understanding of medications and the resulting effects of these medications. As healthcare providers, there has to be knowledge behind why we give certain meds, what the indication is for this medication, what are potential side effects, and for other medications that may not be commonly used in critical care, like tetrahydrozoline, which is the chemical found in these eye drops. What can happen if someone takes too much? So, who were the Hunsuckers? Joshua was 35 and Stacy was 32. They knew each other since they were teenagers and they were high school sweethearts. They got married in 2010 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, before returning to their home in Mount Holly. Stacy was a teacher at First Methodist Church Preschool. She also worked as a paralegal. And she continued working as a teacher until she gave birth to their two girls, Piper and Willow, and then she became a stay-at-home mom. She enjoyed arts and crafts, watching sports. She also loved her children. A friend said that she was a very kind and loving person. So this couple, they seemed to be happy. They would go out to concerts. They would go to cookouts. One of Stacy's friends said that they were a cute couple, and she never even heard them argue before. In 2013, this was shortly after they had their first child, Piper, Stacy was having some medical issues, and the couple actually set up a GoFundMe to ask for help. Then a couple months later, they actually had a fire in their home, and they lost a lot of their belongings, which is extremely stressful. Mm-hmm. A year after the fire, she gave birth to their second daughter, Willow. And after this, she was hospitalized for low blood pressure and a low heart rate. She was stabilized and released. And then she was readmitted a couple months later, and a pacemaker was implanted. They didn't know what was going on, but they were thinking it was cardiac related because of her symptoms. So on September 23rd, 2018, Stacy died suddenly at the Hunsucker home. Allegedly, Joshua went outside to make sure both their cars were locked. And he did this, apparently there was an uptick in burglaries around their neighborhood. So he went out, made sure the doors were locked, and then he came back in. He called 911 and he said Stacy was cyanotic, which just means her face had like a blue tinge to it because it wasn't getting enough oxygen. And he also said she's not breathing. So EMS comes and she is ultimately pronounced dead. Stacy had these known cardiac issues. So initially her death was dismissed as having been related to that. And she was believed to have just died from natural causes, maybe a heart attack. So Joshua immediately refused an autopsy, and allegedly he said, "I don't want her body cut up." And so her body was cremated as soon as possible. Cremated. It was cremated as soon as possible, like very quickly. However, she was a registered organ donor. So they had gotten a vial of blood before she died and just, I guess, kind of put it aside for now. So after this, of course, Stacy dies and Joshua files for her $250,000 life insurance policy just 2 days after her death. So he receives over $200,000 for this. And this looks really shady to the public. Anytime, this always happens. Mm-hmm. People cash in right after and it's a red flag. He had used false information when he submitted the claim. He said Stacy died from a myocardial infarction or a heart attack when her actual cause of death was homicide. She was in fact poisoned. So the way they figured out that she was poisoned is because of suspicious behavior by Joshua. Mm. Joshua's coworkers also had said that he seemed unfazed. Everyone grieves differently. Medics and other emergency personnel have to deal with really traumatizing events and death all the time. So they compartmentalize, they kind of shut off their emotions sometimes as a coping mechanism. They can grieve, they can kind of deal with things in a different way than what you would typically expect. Anyway, colleagues still notice something's weird. And in addition to this, he also had a new girlfriend. And he moves his new girlfriend into their house with the girls right after Stacy's death. Kaylin McDonald was a babysitter. She started working for Joshua right after Stacy died. And she said that Joshua was all over his new girlfriend. They were like talking about wanting to buy a house together, and they just really rarely ever mentioned Stacy's name.
Wow.
Several people also heard different stories about what Joshua was doing when he found Stacy's body. A friend reported that Joshua had said he had gone out for a walk. Susie is Stacy's mother. Susie said that he had told her that he was working at his computer and he turned around and Stacy was dead on the couch. So all of this stuff was shady. In addition, Susie was suspicious. He got a new girlfriend and his behavior wasn't helping the cause. So police end up running that vial of blood that they had saved. And it was tested for certain poisons and toxins. And it showed extremely high levels of tetrahydrozoline. Tetrahydrozoline is a alpha adrenergic receptor agonist. It's used in over-the-counter eye drops, and it helps relieve redness. If it's ingested orally, it can wreak havoc. It can kill you. Symptoms including drowsiness, tremor, irregular heartbeat, and respiratory depression can all result. And it has been used in various homicides and even suicides. So one case involved a woman who wanted her boyfriend to pay more attention to her. So what did she do? She put eye drops in his water intermittently from years 2009 to 2012. He did survive, and he went to the ER for trouble breathing, irregular blood pressure, and nausea. So his tetrahydrozoline level was 49. In another case where the patient died, their level was 68. So that's just a kind of look at, how lethal is this medication? At what level would this be lethal? And it's ingested. So it's put in, it's used as a eye medication in an eyedropper. But when it's used for nefarious reasons, it's put in beverages a lot of the time. And that's when you have issues with toxicity. So investigators were thinking that Joshua may have been poisoning Stacy by putting these eye drops in her drinks over a period of time ultimately culminating in Stacy's death. Some people actually think that Lana Clayton's murder, like I mentioned earlier, who we covered, I don't know, however many cases
Long
ago,
time ago.
that her murder of her husband using the eye drops was what inspired Joshua to allegedly do the same thing. Anyway, but the reason is because her death occurred only 12 miles from where Stacy was killed. So, and it only happened a few weeks before Stacy was killed as well. So it was right in the proximity where he very likely could have known about it.
Wow.
So Joshua was arrested a little over a year later in December 2019, and he was charged with first-degree murder and insurance fraud. Again, insurance fraud because he put the cause of death as a myocardial infarction or heart attack instead of homicide by poison.
Well, I think homicide also disqualifies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. After Stacy's death and Joshua's arrest, he was placed on administrative leave, of course. And then he was ultimately fired due to an investigation into his misconduct over at the flight medic company. In addition to this charge, he was also arrested in 2021 for allegedly setting fire inside a helicopter while working in 2019.
What the heck?
So he was charged with that as well. So it gets a little crazier because he does allegedly some things that allegedly does some things that are very suspicious and frankly weird.
What does he allegedly do?
So, okay, he was released on a $1.5 million bond. Fast forward to February 4th, 2023. He's still out on bail at this time. Stacy's parents, Susie, the mom, and John was her father's name. So John and Susie Robinson filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Joshua, and they wanted custody of their grandkids, Joshua's kids. So, of course, Joshua didn't like this, and he was just doing a lot to show that. And
Allegedly,
he was following them around, driving by their house habitually, making vulgar gestures to them. He was photographing and videotaping them, and he sent them a package. I don't know of what, but he sent them something. And all of this was in a way to say, back off, like, you need to drop the case.
like intimidation tactics.
Exactly. He also falsely accused John, former father-in-law, of assaulting him and kidnapping him, and he staged his own kidnapping. He said he stopped to change his tire because it was flat, and then he got pistol whipped multiple times in the head. And then he said that his hands were zip tied together and that he was injected with something, some kind of substance. In the back of his truck, police find a bag with an antidepressant in it. This will be relevant later. So a few weeks go by and something else happens. And this time his 10-year-old daughter was sent to the hospital for low blood pressure, low heart rate, and severe fatigue.
What antidepressant did he have in the back of his car?
I don't know which one. So Joshua tells the medical team treating his daughter that he thought that she was poisoned with eye drops, which right there is a red flag.
Very great way to be subtle.
They're like,
How do you know that?
it was just very odd. And her urine was tested after this for tetrahydrozoline, and shocker, it was found to have very high levels.
Do you know how high?
I don't know.
I'm just curious if he was trying to kill his kid or just poison her enough.
Well, he did this allegedly in hopes of framing his former parents-in-law.
Wow.
Anyway, so they find her urine's full of this drug, and allegedly he put it in something she was drinking. In addition to this drug, there was also traces of an antidepressant found in her blood sample that's not used in typically in pediatric patients. It's not approved for use.
Wow.
And this is the same antidepressant that was found in the back of his truck during his false kidnapping arc. So prosecutors alleged that Joshua poisoned his daughter in an attempt to frame Stacy's parents. As a result, he was additionally charged with felony witness intimidation because of what he did to her parents-in-law, his former parents-in-law, and misdemeanor obstruction of justice. And his bond was revoked last year in August 2024. Prosecutors said, okay, he's abusing his daughter. He's neglecting both his kids. He's intimidating witnesses. Like, can we please put this man back in custody? He is dangerous, and his behavior is just going to continue to escalate. His case has really had a lot of media attention due to the disturbing nature of these alleged crimes in him involving his own kids. And the legal proceedings are ongoing, and the community just still continues to be perplexed and also grapple with what he has done. And it's just a lot, and it's affected many people.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the poor kid. Not only did this guy kill your mom, allegedly, but also poisoned you in an effort to, like, just touches so many different dynamics within a... But... It's tragic.
Joshua is currently awaiting trial for multiple charges: the first-degree murder of Stacy, child abuse, and witness intimidation. And this case just serves as a chilling reminder, though, that, again, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and that seemingly harmless items can be used and cause deadly effects. Anyway, so rest in peace, Stacy. And I hope his children and former parents-in-law will get some peace at the conclusion of the trial.
Absolutely. And I just want to say I'm so unimpressed with this individual. Okay, I'll phrase it this way. Not only is he a really shisty individual, but think about it. If he allegedly did do this, he's replicating a crime that happened shortly before, that's already on everybody's radar, and recreating it in the same way, but also that alleged staging a kidnapping. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And then the worst part of all, not only killing this child's mother, but trying to kill this kid. Like, it just really is awful on, like, multiple levels. It's awful in the way, not only in that he's doing it, but he's ripped this mother away from this child. He's ripped this daughter away from these parents. He's trying to rip away this grandchild now. And after he allegedly killed her mother, it's like awful on a lot of different levels. And this is his own kid.
And you know what? These parents are grieving the loss of their 32-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. Like, that's traumatizing in of itself, but also adding on the behaviors that he allegedly did, the behaviors with his daughter, and the false kidnapping. That's all very, and to me it seemed that's very bizarre.
Yes.
That's someone trying to, like, cover their butt. Mm-hmm. And also, like, it's not, like, normal.
No. It's very haphazard. It's very disorganized. And it's also, like malevolent intentions. You know what I mean? Like, intentionally being deceitful. Like, it'd be one thing if someone was psychotic. And maybe this is my own opinion, but it's one thing if someone does something while they're psychotic. But to do something when they're able-minded is just, I think, the most horrific. I mean... He did this, very craftily staged this. Like, clearly he knew he wasn't kidnapped. You know what I mean? Like, clearly these people didn't poison your kid. Mm-hmm. Clearly know who killed your wife, and as you're reaping the benefit of her life insurance policy and living with your girlfriend. Like, it's horrific, and there's a lack of remorse.
And this drug was used to kill Stacy. So in an adult woman that's lethal. But it's still, in a pediatric patient, in a much smaller, developmentally 10-year-old patient, that's significantly more likely to be toxic.
And that's why I wonder what her level was, because how much did he get? Like, what were the circumstances? You know what I mean? Was he trying to kill her? Was he trying to hospitalize her? I think you're just obviously giving her it is horrible and evil and awful, but what was his intention in doing so?
I really think it sounds like he wanted to shift the blame from him to John Robinson, his father-in-law, his former father-in-law, but I think he was so desperate to do it, like he didn't care. Like, okay, my daughter, like this is a tool I can use to show. Like, why would I poison my own daughter, especially after my wife died? It's just very weird.
It's very weird. It's very disconcerting.
So he was like trying to allegedly to frame his parents-in-law for the death of, and to say, look at what they did. They're the real bad guys. Like, they're the ones who did this to my family, not me.
What it's saying to me is how sometimes people just react emotionally instead of intellectually, and just purely reacting to what's their feeling and their emotions are, instead of really thinking about the consequences and intellectually what they're doing, how does it appear, and how it's impacting everyone's life.
Well said, Mom. Thank you.
That was a very thoughtful comment. Anyway, that's the case. Again, it's ongoing. So there's been updates as recently as April of this year, I think, is what I last saw. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. And again, my deepest condolences to the family. That's very traumatic to go through and then have to deal with all this after that. It's horrible.
Absolutely. Great job, Ris.
Thank you. I'm going to call it now.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
The time is 2010. That is 8:10 p.m. for those of you who do not use military time. We're calling it. We're going to go snuggle with Bubba.
Bye.
Bye.